Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to our final F125 wet hot lap and track guide. Yes, we return here to the Circuit Zandvoort reverse layout. Yeah, 26 videos down, one last one to go here from this venue. Of course, as always, a massive thank you to everybody for their continued support on this series. Of course, the F125 setups aren't going to be going away anytime soon. We've got Formula 2 now that we're going to get through as well in the not too distant future, but I would argue this circuit in these conditions is the toughest inside the entire game. Zandvoort, of course, as we all already know, is very sort of high speed, high commitment in a lot of places, but weirdly, not that high speed either. It's actually quite a slow Grand Prix around this track. But yeah, you've got to be really, really committed in the car. You've got to be, you know, it's either you're on the road or you're pretty much in a gravel track around a lot of places. It's a bit like Suzuka. It's old school. There's not much room for error. And especially, obviously, in the wet conditions, that does make it a rather large challenge inside F125. But of course, if you don't know what this series is about, I provide you with a race-ready wet setup inside the game. I talk you around the circuit, where your braking markers should be, what gears you want to be using, and a few other important bits of information. And then last but not least, I leave you with a hot lap. Of course, as always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below if you just want to head to a certain part of this video. Like I said, a massive thank you to everybody for all their continued support. If these videos are helping, please do consider leaving a like, getting yourself subscribed as well to the channel. But yeah, without further ado though, let's head out onto the track. Well, I'm making our way then in towards the final corner to get ready for a lap. You want to run nice and wide on the way in and try to get the car nice and tucked up to the apex on the exit. Just allows you to get on that throttle a little bit earlier and carry the speed in towards turn 1. You want to leave the car in 7th gear as we make our way through the banking. Try to hug the inside line as best as you can. And then as you see, obviously, the circuit kind of on the exit, the outside of the track kind of flattens out a bit more. So that's kind of where you want to be aiming. You want to try and get the car out towards the outside and then braking just at the 100-meter board there. From 7th gear, you want to go all the way down to 4th, maybe even 3rd if you're struggling with rotation, but avoid that apex curb as best as you can, and try not to run too wide on the exit. On the dry laps, I say try and get 2 wheels out over the exit, but it is not worth it in the rain. Ready though for turn 3, braking just at the start of this curbing. You want to cycle the car down from 5th gear all the way down to 2nd. Again, hug the apex as best as you can, but just be very, very careful that you don't dip a wheel over the curb, otherwise you'll pick up gravel, as you can see right there, very, very easily. Bizarrely, you pick up gravel on the wrong side of the tyre. Immersion and F125 clearly are not the same thing. But yeah, just be very, very careful of that because it makes getting the power down off of this next corner as well very, very difficult to do. So I like to short shift up through 3rd and then try to get on the throttle as early as we can. Don't use that exit curb though, otherwise it will cost you speed up this next straight. You're going to be all the way up in 7th gear though. Bring the car over to the left-hand side, braking just past the 100-meter board there at the start of the curb, and again down to 3rd gear. Hug the apex, don't allow the car to run too wide on the exit, but just be very, very careful on the throttle through this transition. In towards the next turn though, braking just at the end of this curb on the outside. Very, very tricky. You kind of want to brake a little bit early on, get the car down 1 gear, and then as you rotate the car through, brake a bit more aggressively, and then try to get on the loud pedal as you go past that apex curb. Avoid this outside curb though at all costs. It just costs you time. I know it looks tempting, but it will really ruin our lap time there. Blend the throttle as we make our way through the next corner. You want to go up through 4th and 5th gear, and then try to attack this curb as well. Up then in towards what is normally turn 7. Leave the car in 6th gear. Balance the throttle nice and tidy. You can get on the throttle early here. Use the runoff on the outside and then a little bit of grass as well if you're feeling brave enough. And then through these next couple of turns, all completely flat out as we make our way down in towards the final few turns. Brake at the 100-meter board once again, just at the start of that apex curb, all the way down to 3rd gear. Allow the car to rotate through nice and tidy. I like to open up this penultimate corner a little bit more than the AI do, but then short shift up through 4th and 5th on the exit, again being careful to avoid the curbs. Brake at the 50-meter board for the final corner, down to 3rd gear, try to hug the apex as best as you can, get on the throttle nice and early again, just be careful not to run too wide, and then foot to the floor. That is going to be a lap of the Zandvoort circuit. When you slow it down, it looks super, super easy here, but it is a really, really difficult venue to try and get hooked up. The car is constantly trying to move around underneath you, constantly trying to break traction, and obviously, yeah, there's so many lethal curbs as well. So it is a circuit where I would say consistency beats out-and-out pace, to be completely honest. If you're doing a league race here, I would say other drivers are going to make mistakes, especially in the wet. It's not something they're going to practice for. But anyway, let's head back to the pit lane, though, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, here we are then having a look at our setup figures. Of course, it's Zandvoort, so you're running pretty much maxed out downforce around this venue. 49.46. Again, as I've mentioned before, you always want to run less rear wing than front wing on this game. Otherwise, the car really understeers. I wouldn't run as aggressively as we've done at other venues, like, for example, Silverstone last weekend, there was 5 differential. I normally run 2 or 3 around most venues, but here I'm running 3 just to allow you to slide the back end round a bit, but obviously still give you enough grip and traction off the corners as well. The last thing you want to do is exit a corner completely on opposite lock and cost yourself bags of time. 125 though on the diff, again, completely standard inside this game, and again, pretty much completely standard there. I'm running the rear toe in at 0.12 rather than 0.13. It's a very, very minute difference, but again, just to try and help keep the car nice and stable around this circuit. 36.5 for your front and rear suspension, again, very, very aggressive, and obviously quite a big variety there. 9.16 though for your anti-roll bars, a lot firmer on the front anti-roll bar than we see around a lot of places, but again, where this circuit is quite bumpy, you want to make sure that you're careful with it as well. And then 25.51, really high ride height. It's just to try and give you that stability over the curbs. It is super, super important around this track. 55.97 for your brake bias and pressure. Again, there's a few corners where it might be a little bit of a struggle, so I would say you can look to move that brake bias back to like 54 and then go 96 brake pressure. But again, this circuit, there are a lot of corners where you're trying to brake and rotate the car, so you've just got to find a balance that works for you inside this game. 24.6 front PSI, 22.8 rear. Again, you just want to have a bit of extra stability. Tyre wear isn't too bad around this circuit in the wet conditions, despite everything else I've just said. So, as always, the one-stop strategy is going to be the way to go. Just be very, very careful on pit lane entry. It is so easy just to lock up the inside wheel. And, of course, the pit wall is just a wall on the entry of the final corner. So, you could easily lose a the front wing even, or even pick up massive amounts of damage, or rip off a wheel if you're really, really unlucky with it as well. So be very careful with that. It has almost caught me out a couple of times before as well. But yeah, that's going to do us for this one though. A massive thank you to everybody for all their support through these wet setup guides. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous about doing these when we first started, especially obviously where there's no kind of wet time trial leaderboard anymore in the F1 games as well. But, you know, I want to help you guys out as best as I can, so these have taken a bit more effort, hence why they haven't come out as regularly as the normal dry setups. Like I said, we're going to jump in, we're going to do some F2 dry setups soon, and then we're going to go back through and update some of our F1 ones as well. But yeah, a massive thank you to everybody, and we'll be back very soon with more Formula 1 content.